So let's come back to Atlantis after we've taken this little segue.
Yeah, right, exactly.
We were on, so then I'll go on here one more. I'll finish the quote that I was reading from. So the old priest says, now this has the form of a myth, but it really signifies a declination of the bodies moving in heavens around the earth, and a great conflagration of things upon the earth which occurs after long intervals. They go on to say, the fact is that wherever the extremity of winter frost or of summer does not prevent, mankind exists, sometimes in greater, sometimes in lesser numbers. And whatever happened, either in your country or in ours, or in any other region of which we are informed, if there were any actions, noble or great, or in any other way remarkable, they have all been written down by us of old and are preserved in our temples. Whereas just when you and other nations are beginning to be provided with letters and the other requisites of civilized life, now this is really, really important right here, after the usual interval, the stream from heaven, like a pestilence, comes pouring down and leaves only those of you who are destitute of letters and education. So you have to begin all over again like children and know nothing of what happened in ancient times. So he's telling us right there, this idea of repeated destructions.
They're talking about cycles.
Yes.
25,000 year cycles.
He doesn't give any time
Okay.
for that, but he just says after the usual interval.
Right. Interval. Right.
So they've apparently got some knowledge, some understanding of the cycles that you just said.
Right.
Because it's after the usual interval, the stream from heaven, like a pestilence, comes pouring down.
So, okay. So we're talking about the intervals basically of like the Leo interval, which was, can you explain what that is? The intervals of the different cycles?
So that's basically ever since ancient times, as early as we can go back, the ancient peoples who were inveterate, obsessed sky watchers,
right,
identified these constellations, the 12 known ones,
right,
as being unique because they were the ones that basically all of the movement of the heavenly bodies, the sun, the moon, and the visible planets, all moved within those constellations, right? Now, in addition to that, the vernal equinox, the equinoxes and the solstices,
right,
which are formed like a giant cross in space because they're at right angles to each other. It's rotating slowly.
Right.
So the vernal equinox was like considered to be the marker for the beginning of the year. And it was moving. It was not fixed. It was moving, and it's called precession of the equinoxes because it's moving east to west, whereas all of the other planetary motion, lunar motion, and solar motion is from west to east. Mm-hmm. So if you're standing facing the south, looking up in the heavens from the northern hemisphere, all that motion is going to be from west towards the east, except the vernal equinox is in the opposite direction. So roughly, and this is very rough, roughly every 2,000 years, that vernal equinox will be passing through or transiting one of those 12 signs. So like for the last 2,000 years, it's been passing through the constellation of Pisces. Hence, we've been in the age of Pisces. Right. Now, there's a lot, of course, New Age woo associated with that, but underlying that New Age woo, there's actual, authentic astronomical phenomena, which is the precession of the equinox, which is simply an intersection point between the plane of the ecliptic and Earth's equator, celestial equator, projected into space. And this is going to get complicated, and we'll save this because it requires some graphics for people to actually envision it.
Right.
Other than the fact that the Earth's axis is it's not stable. It's
right.
Doing
It's
this.
It's moving multiple. It's rotating the sun for one. It's doing the.
It rotates
equinox.
on its axis, revolves. The term is revolves around the sun, and then it does this precessional motion like
Right.
this. Well,
Which is called the wobble, right?
yeah. Now, if you picture that the Earth's equator is moving with it, and then you project that plane out into space, that great plane is called the celestial equator, and it's moving at the same rate Earth's axis. Whereas the plane of the ecliptic, the orbital plane of the planets and the sun and the moon, remains fixed. So the plane of the ecliptic is fixed. The celestial equator is moving like this. So the intersection of those two planes is moving at the same rate as this and this. And that's roughly just a little less than 26,000 years.
Wow.
Right? Ancient peoples were really obsessed with
Right.
tracking this motion.
And they were able to measure it like very accurately,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
which is insane.
It's insane. But in it,
Over such a long period of time. Like, how do you do that?
well, it
over-
would take that motion, if you were to try to put it into some understandable form, it's 50 arc seconds per year. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that if you look at the whole circle of the ecliptic, it's 360 degrees.
Right.
Each degree is divided into 60 minutes, and each minute is divided into 60 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go 60 seconds times 60 minutes times 360 degrees, you get the total number of arc seconds in the full circle of the ecliptic. And it turns out to be 1,296,000 years. Or I'm sorry, seconds of arc, right? Precession of the equinoxes is 50 seconds of arc per year. So if I take my calculator and I go 1,296,000 years, 1,296,000 years, right there in the calculator.
Right. Okay.
You see this, Austin? Okay. Now, I divide that by 50, and that's how much it moves. There's the number of years it takes to make one full cycle.
25,920.
Yeah, just a little less than 26,000.
That's one full cycle of the Earth's wobble.
Yes.
Equinox.
Yes. The equinox moving through all 12 signs, coming back to where it started. If we took where it is now and we backed it up, if we went back 25,920 years, the vernal equinox would be in the same position. It would be
Right.
on the cusp between Pisces and Aquarius.
And each one of what these myths are saying, each one of these full cycles of 25,900 years, there is a major catastrophe.
Probably more than one.
More than one.
And in fact, I would argue that it's catastrophes associated with the transition of each of the 4 seasons of the great year. And this was the term great year. Just as there was the
great year is one full rotation of the equinox.
Yes.
Okay.
At least if within the arguments of Hamlet's Mill, which I think is credible. They were the ones who wrote the book Hamlet's Mill in 1969. Giorgio de Santillana and Hertha von Deschend wrote this book. Scholarly tome, very dense, came out in 1969. They make the argument that, and we do know that there was a great year concept in many ancient cultures. They make the argument that the great year was ultimately had its roots in the precessional cycle, which has come down to us in the ages, the age of Aquarius, the age of Pisces, the age
Right.
of Aries, which is a remnant of that, even though it's been watered down into the New Age woo.
Right.
Behind it, there is an authentic tradition. And the belief is that in the course of that cycle, there were certain, shall we say, points of vulnerability where our susceptibility to cosmic catastrophe was increased by maybe orders of magnitude.